shall not allow this idiot, these malagjuas, these baboons are coming to our country, misusing our ladies. Them. That one is not going to happen in our country again. If the government is not going to take action, we are going to take action by ourselves.
God chose you, brother, in the yellow shirt. You know how special you are.
In the first clip, you saw a small group of Kenyans pretty much threatening the lives of the passport Negroes that are in their country, most notably Austin Holloman, his little friend KG, and a couple of others. And then in the second clip, you saw Hebrew Israelites, the loud Negroes that you see here in America yelling and shouting. Well, they brought that over to Kenya talking about Black Jesus, and as you saw, they tried to stone him to death. There were even some explosive, as you saw, involved. And what's so funny in this whole situation to me, the passport bro and the Black Hebrew Israelites coming over to Kenya, it goes to show you once again, white countries are more tolerant of the pro-Black nonsense than Black countries. Imagine that. Because over here in America, you can, spout that nonsense to the detriment of society 24/7. Western Europe, you can do the same thing. But when you go over to these so-called Black countries, and specifically Kenya, then not only are they threatening your lives, they're actually attempting to take your life. Now, in this particular situation, the passport bro situation, they're making verbal threats. They haven't, picked up the stones and launched the explosives yet like they did with the Hebrew Israelites, but I guess time will tell. Now, what's also comical about this situation, you had Austin do a video about it. One of the videos he did, he was basically pointing the finger saying, hey, why aren't you talking about Jay Rello? Which is a real sucker move, but, what else should you expect from a son husband? But in the other video, again, he was complaining and whining, basically about the fact that he does nothing but show love to Kenya. And yes, I mean, he has been a top-tier panderer for Kenya, and it's, not only a business interest, it's also as a result of him being butthurt based on his experiences in Brazil, specifically, not even the feminist attack in Brazil, but it's more so his butthurt over the fact that he believed he should have gotten certain women over white dudes he was hanging out with. Which always brings it back, no matter the space these Negroes occupy, it always brings it back to the inferiority complex that these Negroes have. Now, I found out about this sector of the travel space through Austin Holloman when he was being interviewed by Fox Soul. And, I was interested. Okay, young dude, he's traveling. And at the time, he seemed to not to take too much of a typical Negro stance on things. A more masculine approach, which is now categorized as conservative. And so I was interested to see if this Negro's any different. But then over time, especially when you realize the true aim and goal of people like this is to get sex and to expect sex from women, particularly non-black women, to be first priority, despite how they look, how they dress, or their personality. And his personality in particular is rather dry. But yeah, as a result of that, and the butthurt of getting chosen over whatever white man he was hanging around, that is what resulted in him coming to Kenya. And then he got invested or tries to get invested business-wise over there. And part of that is trying to sell hopes and dreams to people to come over. I mean, not too long ago, I did a video where his cohort interviewed some Negro from America who eventually got played by a Kenyan divester. But anyway, despite all of that pandering and selling of Kenya, they still, a good portion of them, don't care and don't want him there. They don't want him to play savior. And again, despite all this, when you watch his video, he's still out there caping for Kenya and pointing the finger at Whitey, even though no one so-called white is involved. But again, this is what you get with these ignorant poor blacks. I mean, they could literally have somebody else black rob or even murder someone that they care for, but they'll still find a way to circle back around blaming so-called white people. And it's this sort of naive, ignorant stance which puts moronic Negroes like Austin in positions to where they can be hurt in these non-white countries. Because, again, they think it's Communita United, we're all Wakanda, when in reality, it's not the case. The same way it's not the case right here in America. I mean, I think about groups like the Detroit 300 that tried to address the crime situation. They were black men living in a predominantly black city, part of the state. They were trying to bring about resolution, and guess what? Negroes didn't want it in America. They don't want actual solutions. That's true of Negroes in America and Negroes abroad in other countries. And so that's why it's a moronic, naive stance to play this whole communita bullshit. But yeah, again, I watched a portion of the video. Not only was he pointing the finger at Whitey still, he was also talking about black Americans. And how they dare still not like Kenya and Kenyan women specifically. Even though we know, for those that follow his channel early on, these ugly women that he shows aren't his preference, but he's lowering his standards because his ego was hurt when he, I guess, lost out to some Brazilian chick to a white dude. And again, all these Negroes are just a bunch of inferiority complex having lost souls that think traveling is going to somehow solve that issue. Because again, they're always trying to compete with Whitey. But again, ultimately, we'll see how this turn out. I mean, when they make these sort of threats, and this is covered on a channel with 1.26 million subs. I mean, right now it doesn't have a lot of views. But again, as we know, especially with the Charlie Kirk situation, it only takes one person that's truly about it. And, these people have known to, get violent. I mean, we already know about Negroes' violence in America, but, with the President Ruto situation and that whole protest and the deaths involved in that, we know they're willing to get active when they feel passionate about something. And no amount of pandering, pointing the finger at Whitey or Negroes from America who, don't want to come there and don't find their women attractive. No amount of pointing in that direction is going to get these people off Austin and other panderers like him asses that are in that country. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, what's happening here is fully deserved. This is what you get when you have an inferiority complex. This is what you get when you want to point the finger of blame in other people's direction. And this is what you get when you're not just simply honest with yourself. You're a mongerer and you're only in this country because you were butthurt that you lost out to some women in Brazil to a white guy. But anyway, that's all I have to say about this.